when a contestant said, "This is for my angel in heaven." The entire Family Feud studio froze. Steve Harvey, mid-laugh, stopped. The cameras kept rolling, but everything else just stopped. What happened next wasn't in the script. It wasn't planned. And it became one of the most powerful moments in game show history. The bright lights of the Family Feud stage had seen thousands of families compete, laugh, and celebrate. But on this particular Tuesday afternoon taping, something was different. Something was about to break through the joy and turn a simple game show into a moment that would change everyone in that studio, and millions watching at home. This is the story of how one woman's quiet grief, one unexpected answer, and one host's decision to break every rule in television created a memory that refuses to fade. The Johnson family walked onto the Family Feud stage like any other competing family. 5 members, dressed in matching royal blue shirts with their family name embroidered on the chest. There was Marcus, the father, a construction worker with calloused hands and a warm smile. His wife Patricia stood beside him, a kindergarten teacher whose eyes carried something the cameras hadn't quite caught yet. Their teenage son Derek bounced with nervous energy, and Patricia's sister Linda kept whispering encouragement. But it was Sarah, Patricia's 28-year-old daughter, who seemed to carry the weight of something unspoken. Steve Harvey bounded onto the stage with his signature energy, that million-watt smile lighting up the studio. "Welcome, welcome, welcome to Family Feud!" His voice boomed through the space, and the audience erupted. This was routine. This was what Steve did 5 times a day, every day. Make people laugh. Make them forget their troubles for 30 minutes. He shook hands with the Johnson family, made his usual jokes about Marcus's grip, teased Derek about his nervous fidgeting. The audience laughed. Everything was normal. Everything was perfect. "All right, Johnson family, tell me something." Steve leaned in conspiratorially. "What made you want to come on Family Feud?" Marcus stepped forward. "Well, Steve, we've been watching your show for years. It's our family tradition. Every night, dinner and Family Feud." "Every night?" Steve's eyebrows shot up. "Man, y'all must really love me or really hate cooking." The audience laughed. Patricia smiled, but Sarah remained quiet, her hands clasped tightly together. But what no one in that studio knew was that this wasn't just any family game night tradition. It was something much more sacred. Something that started 3 years ago in a hospital room. The first round began normally. We asked 100 people, "Name something you do when you can't sleep." Steve positioned himself between the two families, his energy filling the space. The opposing family, the Mitchells, were veteran game show competitors, confident and loud. Marcus hit the buzzer first. "Count sheep! Count sheep!" Steve repeated, turning to the board. Ding. Number 3 answer. The Johnsons chose to play. Patricia was next. Read a book. Ding. Number 4. Derek. Scroll through my phone. Ding. Number 2. The family was on a roll. The audience clapped along. Steve was in his element, making faces at the camera, playing off every answer. This was the Family Feud everyone loved. Then it was Sarah's turn. She stepped up to the microphone slowly. Steve noticed immediately, his comedian's instinct picking up on something in her energy. His smile softened, just slightly. "All right, Sarah, what you got for me? What do you do when you can't sleep?" Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. I pray." Steve waited for more, but she didn't elaborate. There was something in the way she said it. Not like an answer. Like a confession. "You pray," Steve repeated gently. "That's beautiful, baby." He turned to the board, his usual theatrics dialed back. "Show me pray." Ding. Number 1 answer. The Johnson family erupted. The audience cheered. But Sarah didn't celebrate. She just nodded once, tears already forming in her eyes. Steve saw it. In that moment, standing 10 feet from her, he saw something break open in this young woman's face. And in 40 years of entertainment, through comedy clubs, radio shows, and thousands of Family Feud episodes, Steve Harvey had learned to recognize real pain when he saw it. The round continued. Linda gave an answer. They won the round. Points were tallied. The show moved forward because that's what shows do, they move forward. But Steve kept glancing back at Sarah, who stood at the end of the family line, arms wrapped around herself. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. During the commercial break, Steve did something unusual. Instead of reviewing notes with producers or joking with the crew, he walked over to the Johnson family. "Hey, Sarah." His voice was different now, quieter, without the performance. "You okay, sweetheart?" Patricia put her arm around her daughter. "She's okay, Steve. We're okay." But Steve had been doing this too long to accept surface answers. He'd spent years reading people, understanding the difference between okay and actually being okay. "That per answer," he said softly. "That meant something, didn't it?" Sarah's composure cracked. "Just for a second." She nodded. "We lost someone," Patricia said quietly. 2 years ago. Sarah's daughter. She was 6. The busy studio seemed to slow down. Crew members who'd been adjusting lights and checking equipment paused. This was the thing about pain, real pain, it has a frequency that cuts through all the noise. Her name was Emma. Sarah's voice was so quiet Steve had to lean in to hear. "We'd watch your show together. Every single night. She tried to guess the answers before anyone buzzed in. She always wanted to be on Family Feud." A tear rolled down her cheek. "She never got to." Steve's jaw tightened. His eyes, usually sparkling with mischief, filled with something else. Every parent's nightmare. Every human's heartbreak. "So you came here for her," he said. It wasn't a question. "Everything we do," Sarah whispered. "Everything is for her now. This is for my angel in heaven," the stage manager called out. 30 seconds. Crew members moved back into position. The machine of television production rolled forward. But something had shifted. Steve Harvey walked back to his mark, but he wasn't thinking about questions or points or comedy beats. He was thinking about a little girl named Emma who never got to play Family Feud. Behind the scenes, Steve made a decision that defied every producer's expectation. He was about to break a rule he'd never broken before. Round 2 began. The energy in the studio had changed somehow, though the audience couldn't quite identify why. Steve's jokes were a little softer. His timing was still perfect, but there was something else underneath. The game progressed. The Johnsons were winning, but it wasn't the score that mattered anymore. Every time Sarah stepped up to answer, the entire studio held its breath. She got 2 answers right, and each time, she looked up, as if someone beyond the studio lights could see her. During the final fast money round, something unprecedented happened. Patricia and Sarah were chosen to play. They'd answer rapid-fire questions, trying to score 200 points between them. Patricia went first, did well, scored 142 points. Now it was Sarah's turn. She needed 58 points. The questions began. "Name something people do at the beach." "Swim." Ding. 24 points. "Name a type of doctor." "Pediatrician." Her voice caught on that word. Pediatrician. The doctor who couldn't save Emma. Steve noticed. So did Patricia. Ding. 15 points. 3 questions in, Sarah was doing well. Then came the 4th question. "Name something a child asks for before bedtime." Sarah froze. The studio was silent. The 5-second timer ticked. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. Steve watched her face. He saw the memory hit her. The bedtime stories. The prayers. The last, "I love you, Mommy," she'd ever hear. 2 seconds. "A hug," Sarah whispered. Buzz. Time expired before the answer registered. "Oh, baby," Steve said softly, breaking protocol. Hosts aren't supposed to react during fast money. They're supposed to stay neutral, keep the pace. But Steve Harvey wasn't thinking about protocol. The board revealed her answer anyway. Ding. Number 2 answer. 31 points. They'd won. 212 points total. $20,000. The Johnson family rushed onto the stage. Confetti fell. Music played. This was the moment of celebration, the manufactured joy that ended every winning Family Feud episode. But Steve Harvey wasn't celebrating. He stood very still in the center of the stage, watching Sarah, who wasn't jumping or cheering. She was crying. Not tears of joy. Tears of something much deeper. And then Steve did something no Family Feud host had ever done. But this is the moment no one in the studio, and no one watching at home ever saw coming. "Hold up," Steve said. The music cut out. The celebration stopped. The producers in the booth looked at each other. This wasn't the script. This wasn't how this worked. "Hold up," Steve repeated louder. He looked directly at the head camera. "Stop the confetti. Stop everything for a minute." The studio fell completely silent. 300 audience members didn't make a sound. Steve walked over to Sarah, who stood frozen in the middle of her family, tears streaming down her face. "Sarah," Steve's voice filled the studio, gentle but firm. "I need to tell you something. And I need everybody here to hear it." He turned to address the entire audience. "Y'all might not know this, but this young lady right here, she didn't come to play for money. She didn't come here to be on TV." His voice thickened with emotion. "She came here for her little girl. Her daughter Emma, who she lost 2 years ago. Emma was 6 years old. And Emma loved this show. She wanted to be on Family Feud more than anything." The audience gasped. Some hands went to mouths. Some reached for the person next to them. Steve turned back to Sarah. "You said everything you do is for your angel in heaven. You said this was for Emma." Sarah nodded, unable to speak. "Well, I want you to know something." Steve's voice broke slightly. "Emma was here today. You feel me? She was here. She played this game with you. Every answer you gave, every time you stepped up to that podium, she was right there." Patricia sobbed openly. Marcus had his arm around Derek, both of them crying now. "And I'll tell you what else," Steve continued, and now he was crying too, tears rolling down his face, his voice raw with emotion. "In 40 years of doing this, I've never stopped the show. Never. But today, I'm stopping it because I need everybody in this studio, everybody watching at home, to understand something." He looked around at the audience, at the crew, at the cameras. Life is hard. Life will break your heart. Life will take things from you that you can never get back. But love? Real love? That doesn't stop. That doesn't end. Sarah's love for Emma didn't stop when Emma went to heaven. It got stronger. It became the thing that brought her here, that made her play this game, that made her answer that question about prayer. The studio was completely silent except for the sound of people crying. Steve reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out his pocket square, the expensive silk one he always wore, and handed it to Sarah. "You keep this," he said. "This is from me and it's from Emma. And every time you look at it, I want you to remember that love is the only thing that's real. The only thing that lasts. Everything else, the money, the fame, the game, none of that matters. But love? Love is eternal." Sarah took the pocket square with shaking hands. Steve pulled her into a hug. This broken mother and this television host, two strangers connected by grief and grace. The audience stood. All of them. A standing ovation that wasn't for the game, or the money, or the show. It was for something much bigger. The Mitchell family, the opponents who'd lost the game, left their podium and walked across the stage. The patriarch of their family, a man in his 60s, embraced Sarah. "We're sorry for your loss," he said simply. The two families stood together on that stage, no longer competitors, just humans sharing a moment of profound connection. Steve wiped his eyes. "All right," he said to the cameras, his voice still thick. "I don't know if we can use this episode. I don't know if this is good TV. But I know it's real. And I know Emma is smiling right now. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The aftermath of that taping became television legend. The producers didn't know what to do. Steve had broken every rule. The show had stopped for nearly 10 minutes. The confetti drop was ruined. The timing was completely off. But when they reviewed the footage, they saw something they hadn't expected. They saw 300 people in an audience having a genuine, unscripted, raw human experience. They saw the masks come off. They saw the difference between entertainment and meaning. The episode aired 3 weeks later, completely unedited. The network was nervous. Would audiences want to see a game show host cry? Would they tune in for grief instead of laughter? They did. Over 12 million people watched. It became the most shared Family Feud episode in history. But the real impact wasn't measured in ratings. Steve Harvey kept that jacket pocket square in his dressing room for months after, unwilling to replace it. He said in an interview later, "Emma taught me something that day. She reminded me why I'm here. Not to make people laugh, though I love that. But to make them feel. To remind them they're not alone." The Johnson family used their $20,000 to start the Emma Grace Foundation, providing support for families who've lost children. Sarah still watches Family Feud. She says it differently now. She says she's watching with Emma, not without her. And somewhere in Steve Harvey's office, in a frame next to his Emmy Awards and his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, there's a photo from that day. Steve hugging Sarah, the Johnson family surrounding them, the audience on their feet. No score visible. No game board showing. Just humans being human. Because sometimes the most powerful moments in television aren't the ones that are planned. They're the ones where someone decides that people matter more than protocol, that grief deserves space, that love, even love for someone who's gone, is worth stopping everything for. Emma never got to play Family Feud. But on that Tuesday afternoon, in front of millions of people, she won anyway.